Welcome back. Today we're going to be continuing our unit on proportions and percents, and today we're going to be involving word problems with our proportions. Let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. Here we are at example A, and Penelope is baking cookies. Her recipe calls for 2.5 cups of sugar and 3 cups of flour. Penelope only has 1 cup of sugar, so how much flour should she use for her cookies? So this is a common thing that people run into, adjusting their recipes according to the ingredients that they have. So let's go ahead and see how we can set this up in our proportion. So the thing that we know right now is that we have 2.5 cups of sugar to 3 cups of flour. So notice I kept the recipe on one side of my proportion, so on the other side of my proportion I have what she's actually got to work with, and she's got 1 cup of sugar. So it's important for me to remember to keep the sugars lined up. So I've got 2.5 cups of sugar on the top on one side, so I have 1 cup of sugar on the top on the other side. Then I don't know how many cups of flour that's going to be, so that's going to be my X. Now that I've set up my proportion, it's important to remember that now I'm going to cross multiply. So I'm going to have 3 times 1 and 2.5 times X. 2.5 times X is going to give me 2.5X, and 1 times 3 is going to give me 3. Now I've got a one-step equation, and I know how to solve one-step equations. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my wall down for my equal sign. I need to do the inverse operation of multiplication, which is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2.5. So 3 divided by 2.5. Now again, if I can't do this math in my head, it's okay. I can use my calculator. 2.5 divided by 2.5 is 1, or 1x. And 3 divided by 2.5 is 1.2, so my answer is 1.2, but this is a word problem, so I need to have a word answer. So usually you don't have 1.2 cups of flour, so you're going to have to probably convert that into a fraction. So in this case, we're going to have 1.2, that's going to be the same as 6/5, or 1 1/5 cups of flour. Make sure that you label your answer. You always want to have a word answer to your word problem. Now let's take a look at example B. Here we are in example B, and it says this table shows a proportional relationship between the number of miles Frank drives and the number of gallons his car uses. If Frank has 6 gallons of gas, how far can he drive? So taking a look at our chart, we've got gallons laid out in 3 gallons, 4 gallons, and 7 gallons, which is not very useful for us because we have 6 gallons of gas to work with. So let's set up our proportion knowing that we have 6 gallons of gas. We have no idea how far we can go, but we can use this handy chart. It doesn't matter which number of gallons we choose to work with, whether it's 3, 4, or 7, as long as we make sure that we use the corresponding miles. So I'm going to use 4 gallons. It doesn't matter. I could have used 3, I could have used 7, as long as the one that corresponds with the 4 gallons is 104 miles. So that's what needs to go on the bottom of my proportion. So notice I have number of gallons across the top and number of miles across the bottom. So I've got everything lined up. Now that I've got my proportion set up, I can go ahead and cross multiply. So I'm going to do 4 times X and 6 times 104. 4 times X is going to give me 4X. And 6 times 104, again, if you can't do that in your head, feel free to use your calculator. It's always good to use your math tools. It's going to give us 624. Now I've got a one-step equation. I know how to solve one-step equations. I'm going to go ahead and draw my wall down for my equal sign. Divide both sides by 4. Remember, the inverse operation of multiplication is division. 4 divided by 4 is 1, or 1x. And 624 divided by 4 is going to give me 156. But again, this is a word problem, so I need a word answer. So 156 miles, since that's what we were talking about. How far can he drive? So that is my answer. Now let's take a look at example C. So here we are in example C, and it says Daniel surveyed people at the movie theater about their favorite types of films. 20% of the people he surveyed said they prefer comedies. If 296 people said they preferred comedies, how many total people did he survey? So again, this is a common thing that movie theaters will do. If they're surveying their patrons, then they know what types of movies people prefer, and those are the types of movies they're more willing to buy and put into their theater. So let's take a look at the information we have. So we know that he's talking about 20% of the people that he surveyed preferred comedies, and 296 of those people were the people that preferred comedies. So nothing in here talked about the total number of people other than the question that it's asking me. So let's set up our proportion with what we do have. We know that 20% of the people okay, was the same like comedies, and 296 people like comedies. So on the left-hand side of my proportion, I have the percent of people that like comedies, and on the bottom part of my proportion, I have the people that actually like comedies. So the number of people compared to that percentage. So now I need to figure out what other parts of my proportion have, because I need to have three numbers in order to make a proportion. So if I'm talking about total, anytime that you see we're talking about total and there are percentages involved, then you know that the total percent is always going to be 100%. So if you're talking about a total percentage of something or a total percent of a pie, that's always going to be 100%. So now that we know that, we can take that number and put it across from our percentage that we already have. So we have percentages across the top, and we don't know the total number of people, so we're going to have X at the bottom, since that's where the people will be in our particular proportion. So now we're going to cross multiply with the information that we have. 20 times X is going to give us 20X. Then we're going to do 296 times 100, and when we do that, we're going to get 29,600, a large number. So again, if you have to use your calculator, that's okay. Better to use the calculator and get it right than not use the calculator and get it wrong. Now that I've got a one-step equation, I'm going to go ahead and draw my wall down for my equal sign. Then I'm going to have to solve my equation, dividing both sides by 20 on both sides of my equation. 20 divided by 20 is 1, or 1x. 29,600 divided by 20 is going to give me 1,480, but again, this is a word problem, so I need a word answer, and in this case, we're talking about people, so the thing that our answer is going to be is 1,480 people. Make sure to label your answer like I did. Now let's take a look at example D. So here in example D, we've got another table, and it says the number of different color M&Ms in a bag are listed in this table. What percent of the total M&Ms are green? So again, we've got that important information there. We're talking about total and we're talking about percent. So we know that one of the things that we're going to need, since we're talking about total and we're talking about percent, is 100%. We know that's going to be one of our numbers. Actually, let's go ahead and put that in our proportion now so we don't forget. So anytime that we see percent and total, we know that 100 is probably one of the numbers that we're going to be talking about. Now it wants to know about green M&Ms. So let's take a look at our chart. We're going to find some green M&Ms. So we've got green M&Ms here, and that's 3 of them. So now we know that 3 M&Ms are green. Now, we don't know what percentage of M&Ms that is. That's what it's asking us to find. So again, we're going to put that over the 100%. Now our problem becomes, what is our third number that we know? And we need to figure out what the total is going to be. Since we found the total percent as 100%, we need to figure out what the total number of M&Ms there are. And the only way to do that, since it's not listed, is to add up all of the numbers in our table. So we need to add up all of our numbers together in order to figure out the total number of M&Ms that there are. So 16 plus 8 plus 14 plus 3 plus 18 plus 1. And if we do that, we know that there's going to be 60 M&Ms total. So that's our total that's going to go on the other side of our proportion. So now if we look at our proportion, we have a few things labeled out here. We've got the totals on the bottom. We've got a total percent on one side, total of M&Ms on the other. We've got percentages on the top on one side, the percentage of green on the top on one side, and the percentage of and the total number of green M&Ms on the other side. Now that we've got our proportion, let's go ahead and cross multiply. So we're going to do 60 times X and 3 times 100. 60 times X is going to give me 60X. 3 times 100 is going to give me 300. Now I've got a one-step equation that I know how to solve, so I'm going to draw my wall down for my equal sign, divide both sides by 60. 60 divided by 60 is 1, or 1x, and 300 divided by 60. Again, if you can't do that in your head, feel free to use your calculator. When you do 300 divided by 60, you're going to end up getting 5. So that's our final answer, but it's not 5 M&Ms. We were talking about finding the percent. So this answer is 5%. Remember to label your word problems with word answers, and this is 5%. Now let's take a look at the next one. Here we are in example E, and this one it wants us to find each of the missing values. Now, building off of what we just did with our percents, there's special kinds of proportions known as is over of problems. And they use this proportion, is over of is equal to a percent over 100. So knowing that proportion, we're going to use that to figure out some of our problems here. So our first one is 78% of 200. So we're going to fill in our proportion with the information that we have and then go forward from there. So we know that 100 is always part of this proportion. So anytime we do any of these is over of problems, we want to make sure that we put the 100 down on the right-hand side. Now we've got 78%, so that's going to go where the percentage area is. It says what number is, so we don't know what that is, so that's going to be our x, and it says of 200. So since it says of 200, the 200 goes in the bottom. So now that I've got my proportion all set up, I'm going to cross multiply and solve it just like I have all my other proportions to this point so far. So x times 100 is 100x. 78 times 200 is probably not too fun to do in your head, so feel free to use your calculator. When you do, you get 15,600. Now that I've got a one-step equation, I'm going to go ahead and draw my wall, divide both sides by 100. Remember, because we're using our inverse operation, 100 divided by 100 is 1, or 1x, and 15,600 divided by 100 is 156. Now, these aren't really word problems because you're not going to write 156 is's. That doesn't make any sense. What you are going to say is 156 is 78% of 200. So that is what you are saying there, but you're not going to write 156 is's. Now that you've seen that one set up correctly, I want you to try the other two there on your own. So you're going to go ahead and pause the video now, set them up and solve them, and then press play again to see if you are right. How did you do? Did you get the same answers that I got? Hopefully you did. If not, go ahead and fix your paper so that it looks like mine, and then let's move on to the next one. Here we are at example F, and we need to select all the proportions that can be used to solve this problem. The problem says to mix pink paint, Lori uses 2 parts of red paint to 3 parts white paint. If Lori has 6 tablespoons of red paint, how much white paint should she use? So now I've got a whole bunch of options as to how to set up this proportion, and I need to figure out which ones are right. The easiest way to do this is to set the proportion up yourself and then see which proportions match your setup. So I'm going to set ours up as 2 parts red to 3 parts white is equal to, and let's see what she has. She has 6 tablespoons of red, so that's going to go up with the 2 on the red line, and then I don't know how many white, so that's going to be my x. So now that I've set up my proportion, I'm going to see how many of them match my cross multiplication. So I would be multiplying 3 times 6 and 2 times x. So let's see how many do that. This one I've got in the front is 3 times 6, 2 times x. It's actually the one that we made, so that is a correct proportion. Now let's take a look at the next one. 2 times x, 3 times 6. They multiply the same things, so yes, that's a correct answer. The next one does 6 times x and 2 times 3. That is not what I put together, so that is not going to be a correct answer. So that one is not going to be right. And the last one is going to be 3 times 6 and 2 times x, and that is what we multiplied together, so that is again a correct answer. So 3 right answers, 1 wrong answer. This brings us to the end of this video, so if you like this video, go ahead and throw us a thumbs up. If you love this video, go ahead and throw us a sub, and we will catch you in the next one.